Hey everybody, Sean Rosensteel here, founder of Savvy Pro Web, and I'm looking forward to summarizing Donald Miller's Building a StoryBrand, such a powerful marketing communication framework. If you're wondering what it is you're looking at on the screen, this is a mind map. This is what the end of the journey looks like for us today. Oftentimes when I read a book and I feel it's really good information, what I'll do is I'll go over it a second, third time. If I really want to commit it to memory though, I'm going to draft a mind map. This especially helps me recall the information faster, as well as helps me implement and take action on some of the strategies. So I've done a mind map here for building a story brand, one of my favorite communication frameworks of all time. I've probably given away over 100 copies of this book to friends, family, clients. It's just a really powerful communications framework, so I'm excited to summarize it with you here today. Let's get going. We got a lot of information to cover. So it starts out with an introduction, 2 key points here. Number one, and this is a huge paradigm shift, at least it was for me. I think I read this book originally in 2017. I believe that's when it was published. Customers don't care about your story. They care about their own. And this is a big mistake so many entrepreneurs and business owners make, is that they create their marketing collateral, their business cards, their LinkedIn profiles, their websites, their brochures, flyers. They make it all about them. And they're really trying to prove their credibility and prove their worth and convince prospects to do business with them. But prospects sit there and say, well, what's in it for me? Can you solve my problem or not? So this is a huge shift in the way that we can market our own companies. For those of us who are entrepreneurs out there, customers don't care about your story. It's no longer about, well, my great-grandfather started the company back in 1957 and we're a third generation business owner. Unfortunately, prospects don't care about that. They're sitting there saying, what's in it for me? So they care about their own story, not yours. And what we need to do is we need to take a different approach here. We actually need to position our prospect as the hero and not necessarily our company, right? So think about it this way. We all wake up as heroes in our own lives. We've all got problems we're looking to solve, and we all look for guides to help us solve those problems. So when your business is a hero and I come to your website and I'm a hero, there's not room for both of us in my day. I'm the hero in my day. I'm trying to solve my problem. I'm looking for a guide that's been there, done that, and has the competency to help me get to the other side, so to speak. So that's a big shift in the way that companies can market their company, their businesses, and it's a very powerful one. So Don Miller here suggests that your customer, your prospect, your website visitor, the person on the other end of the line, they need to be the hero. You need to position yourself or your business as the guide. And that's what StoryBrand, the communication framework, is really all about. So there's a couple different sections in this book. Section 1 is about why most marketing is a money pit. And I've been doing digital marketing for about 13 or so years. I can't agree more with him. So he talks about how 2 things. We need to focus on the aspect of our offer or our product or our service that helps people survive and thrive. And we need to do it and communicate it in a way where people can understand it quickly without having to burn too many calories. So that's the key to being seen, heard, and understood in the marketplace, is to focus on the aspects of what you do or what you offer or the product you have, and make it so that people can understand how it helps them survive and thrive. That's what our brains are naturally wired to do, right? And communicate that value in a way where people can understand it without burning too much energy. Because what happens when we get confused? We start to daydream, our brain starts to shut off, we start to lose focus. So those are 2 really important elements here in order for our companies and our products to be seen, heard, and understood in the marketplace. Don suggests, and I agree with him, that the most powerful tool is actually story. I mean, think about it. Story has been used as a very effective communication tool for thousands of years, since the beginning of recorded history, right? So stories are a really fun, creative, effective way to get people to listen, isn't it? The mantra at StoryBrand is, if you confuse, you'll lose. I've been told that my entire life, and I agree wholeheartedly with it. When you confuse people, you lose people. When you confuse your website visitors, you'll lose your website visitors, right? And he suggests that your business's enemy, the enemy that's costing so many businesses and entrepreneurs tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, is noise. And it's actually the noise that our companies are creating. It's the noise on our marketing collateral. It's the noise in our sales communication. It's the noise on our websites. We're contributing to this, noise pollution machine. I call it the digital noise machine. But we're contributing. We're guilty of this, and we can stop it using this framework, which is, of course, very empowering, right? The second chapter is the secret weapon that will grow your business. So again, Don's suggesting here that story is actually the greatest weapon we have to combat that noise and ultimately grow our business. He says that people don't buy the best products necessarily. They buy the products they can understand the fastest. Now think about this for a minute. In your own buying behavior, in your own shopping behavior, there might be the best product on the shelf, but when it's riddled with insider language and tech talk and all this terminology you don't necessarily understand, what do? You might get confused and look for the next product, right? And if there's a product there that you can understand quickly, you might buy that, even though it's an inferior product. So that's a really big takeaway. He talks about passing the grunt test. And this is primarily for your website, right? And this is very powerful. If you have to pause the video, pull up yourown.com and see if your website passes the grunt test. But he says that within 3 seconds, the visitor needs these 3 questions answered. What is it that you offer? How will it make my life better? And what do I need to buy it? So again, if you need to, pause the video, open a new tab, pull up your own website. And again, within 3 seconds, does your website pass the grunt test? Does it explain what you offer, how it will make the visitor's life better in some way, shape, or form? And do you explain how you can get started, or how the visitor can get started or buy from you, or get that quote, or schedule that appointment, book that call your number, whatever your call to action might be. So that's super powerful. And again, this framework will help you to achieve that and pass the grunt test with your own website. Don introduces this tool called the StoryBrand brand script. It's a really simple 7-part communication framework where you go through, you answer 7 questions, and you do it in a way that really clarifies and tightens down the message that you want to present to the marketplace. I don't have a picture of that for you today, but you can certainly Google that. It's obviously in the book. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's mystorybrand.com. You can create a free account there if you're interested, and they have kind of a web-based version where you can go through and answer that. I will warn you though, I tried that many years ago, and I ended up losing my work. I mean, it didn't actually save for me, unfortunately. So be sure you have a very reliable internet connection, or you can just simply pull up a Word doc and do this on your own. It's pretty straightforward. We'll get to those 7 parts in a minute. Don suggests that when customers finally understand how you can help them, your company will grow. So pretty interesting stuff. Do our prospects actually understand how we can help them? Are we communicating how we can help them and how we can solve their problems in a way that's very clear and very simple to understand? Chapter 3 is him introducing this StoryBrand framework. They call it the SB7 framework. So this is really simple. And I think the reason I'm so attracted to this is I studied years ago Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, and it's rather complex. And it's really all about you, right? It's all about discovering your own hero's journey, or at least some of the education I had was about discovering our own. Well, this is really neat because he puts it, he actually shines a light on your prospect and says, here's a simplified way to understand their story, to understand their journey as it relates to your product, service, brand, company, whatever it may be. And we actually have to make this about them. And I think the secret ingredient here that so many companies lack in their marketing strategy is, I like to call it empathy. It's just simple empathy. Every prospect we work with wants to know if we see them, if we hear them, if we understand them. And I think what this really does is it helps us as entrepreneurs and as a company express that empathy that our prospects are so desperately seeking. So there's 7 really simple points to this framework. It's a character who has a problem and meets a guide who gives them a plan, calls them to action, helps them avoid failure, and ultimately it helps them achieve success. It ends in success, right? So we need to discover, as it relates to our overall company, or as it relates to our 17 products or our 3 service lines, what is the brand script? What's the story brand language we can use for our company, as well as each of the services we offer or each of the products we have, right? And this character is not you, it's not your business, it's your prospect. And it's really simplified. So rather than getting into like, traditional marketing might have you get into demographics and geographics and psychographics and, street level detail, this just, Don's suggesting, no, just who is it? Is it an entrepreneur? Is it a stay-at-home mom? Is it a homemaker, right? Is it the director of operations? Like, who is it? Just really simple. Who's your character? So we're going to dial in this a little bit further, and we're going to dig deeper into the next section here. But this is kind of the high level 30,000 foot of what the story brand or the SB7 framework looks like. So that covers section 1. Section 2 is all about building your story brand. And this is one of those books where it's a really easy read, but it might take you anywhere from a couple hours to, if you're anything like me, a couple years to really refine and dial in the messaging, because it's one of those things where, there's certain things in life where time is your greatest teacher. And I think clarifying your message is one of them. It's one of those things where you have to do it once, take it out into the marketplace, test it, see if it resonates, ask for feedback from some of your ideal clients, and then bring it back in, massage it further, refine it further, and then take it back out for a test drive a second time. I've been refining my own message for Savvy Pro Web for many, many years. And like a fine wine, it ages with time. So there's some seasonality involved, but this section is all about building your own story brand. It's about brainstorming your own brand script and discovering the answers to these 7 key parts, right? Okay, so number 1, a character. 2 big ideas here. We have to define a character. We have to define what it is they want as it relates to our company or our service or our product or our brand, whatever it might be. We also have to define like the aspirational identity, like who do they want to become as it relates to our company? Who does our prospect want to become? What's the transformation that they experience, right? So he says to choose a desire relevant to their survival. And he gives a lot of examples about this. It sounds more difficult than it is, but everybody intrinsically is thinking, does this brand, company, product, service, whatever it might be, does this help me to survive and thrive or not? So we have to choose language that relates back to our prospects' survival. It's just human nature, and we're so much more effective when we can choose language that does that. The second thing is he suggests that the goal is that every potential customer knows where we want to take them, right? What's that old biblical passage? Without a vision, people perish. So we want to paint that picture of where the character wants to go, and they need to know, the prospect needs to know where it is we're looking to take them. So we need to figure out, okay, who's our character? What is it they want? And what's that aspirational identity? Who are they looking to become? What's the vision we can cast for them as it relates to our brand, product, service, right? So that's part 1, a character. Part 2 is all about the problem. So the problem is the hook of the story, right? It's the hook. And there are 3 levels of conflict we actually need to solve for in our messaging. So there's an external problem. So I'm just going to give an example from my own business here. But there's an external problem. That's like the surface level problem. So we serve entrepreneurs. What do they want? They want a new website. They want to market their businesses online with confidence, right? But there's a problem. The problem is dealing with tech-talking website vendors is about as painful as getting a root canal. It's a real problem, right? So then there's an internal problem. Well, how does that make them feel? How does that external problem make them feel? So in our case, it really frustrates these entrepreneurs. They're almost a little bit intimidated, and frankly, they're feeling downright vulnerable, right? They don't know what they don't know. That internal problem then creates a philosophical problem. Like, what's just plain wrong about this situation? Is it good versus evil? What is it? Like, why is this philosophically wrong? In my own example, it's like, hey, you know what? No entrepreneur should be held hostage by a bad website or the vendor that built it. That's just philosophically wrong to feel handcuffed in that regard. So we actually have to come up with answers to 3 different levels of problems. We've got a character, so we identify a character. Okay, what's their problem? That's the hook of the story. On an external level, surface level, here's what's in their way of them getting what they want. This external problem is making them feel anxious, stressed, worried, nervous, frustrated, whatever the emotions are that your prospect's experiencing because of this problem. And then ultimately, what's just wrong about this? Like, how should it be? Or what ought to happen, right? So at a philosophical level, that what's wrong. And then Don talks about the perfect brand promise. And he suggests that if your messaging can solve the prospect's problem on all 3 levels, external level, internal level, and philosophical level, like you've got that perfect brand promise. And again, your message will resonate that much further. Okay, so we've got our character. Our character, unfortunately, has a problem. What's the third part of this framework? Well, they meet a guide. That's you, right? That's the entrepreneur, the business owner, the marketer, your company or your product or your service. They need a guide. So every hero is looking for a guide. And Don talks about this fatal mistake. And I mentioned it in the first few minutes of the video. The fatal mistake is this. So many businesses position themselves as the hero in their prospect story, and they fail to position themselves as the guide. And that's costing all of us, entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, a ton of money every year. So there's 2 characteristics of a guide. Number 1 is they express empathy. So we need to create some messaging that helps our prospects or our website visitors understand that, you know what, we see you, we hear you, we get you. So when I'm typically talking to an entrepreneur and the entrepreneur needs a new website, I know how painful that position is. I usually say something like, hey, I bet you'd rather get a root canal than speak with someone like me right about now. And that usually kind of disarms the situation a little bit, and it puts everybody at ease. So we need to come up with some sound bites that express empathy, that help our customer, prospect, website visitor. It puts them at ease, and it helps them understand that, okay, oh wow, you really get me. You're a company or you're a brand or this product, that you really get me. So 2 characteristics. Number 1 is you have to express empathy. Number 2, you have to demonstrate authority, right? Or what I would rather call that would be competency. Not only does a prospect need to know that you get them, but they need to know that you have the competency to do a job and do it well to help them solve their problem. And we can demonstrate authority or competency in small ways. We don't have to plaster, awards and accolades and testimonials all over the website. We can sprinkle them in very tastefully. So it's almost like checking that subconscious box, right? We don't have to sit there and beat our chest and, stroke our egos and everything else, but we can very tastefully sprinkle those in so that they understand, oh, okay, this company's been around for a while. They've got some great statistics. They've won some awards. They're belonging to these organizations or associations, that we appreciate and value as well. And okay, we're in good hands. We're in good company. We don't have to sit here and brag about what we do and plaster massive testimonials all over our website, right? Okay, so we've got a character. Character has a problem on 3 levels. Remember, external, internal, philosophical. Then they meet a guide. That's us. That's our company. 4th part is we have to give them a plan. We have to show them where we want to take them. We have to set their expectation for what's next. So Don says that the plan creates clarity. It removes confusion. It alleviates fear, right? So there's 2 types of plans. There's a process plan, which is pretty self-explanatory, right? You probably have a proven process or some sort of a process that you take clients or customers through. You can also have an agreement plan. So you might have more of a contractual or an agreement plan that includes, the values or a guarantee or certain performance metrics or quotas, right? Or certain deliverables. So you can have both, one, the other, or both, but we need to give our prospects a plan. I love the analogy or the metaphor that Don uses, which is picture your prospects sitting on one side of the creek. They're trying to get to the other side. And we need to plant the stones in the creek that will help them, through safe passage to the other side. They need to know that we're going to keep them from falling in. They need to know that there is a path they can take to get from point A to point B. And what they're thinking is that, gosh, I really don't want to get wet. I don't want to fall in and get wet. And worst off, there's 100 yards downriver. I can hear a pretty deep waterfall down there. I don't want to die. I don't want to go over the edge and die. So that's what they're thinking. Think about it for a minute. Anytime you're looking to sign up for a service, a product, whatever it is, there's always kind of that hesitation, like, I don't know what I don't know. So when we can give our prospects a plan, it creates that clarity. And I believe that it's the essence of clear expectation setting. There's nothing worse than not having our expectations set. So having our expectations set is really nice. So it's like, okay, you're here. We're going to get you here. It's going to take 3 months, 1 month, whatever it might be, or it's going to take 5 minutes. And here's how simple this is. So we just simplify it. So they're like, oh, I see now, eyes wide open, that if we do business with you, it's step 1, 2, and 3, and we're off to the races and our problem is solved and we can, move past this. And Don suggests that we don't really have over like 4, maybe 5 steps max. We were interviewing realtors a few years ago when my wife and I sold our house, and one of the realtors had like a 17-step marketing plan, and he showed me the marketing plan, and my brain just turned off. I'm like, this is great for you internally. Like, I'm glad you have that process, but I don't want to know about this. Like, I'm not interested in it. It's too much information for me to process right now. So we really want to keep our process to like 3, maybe 4, if you have to, 5 steps. But just keep in mind, your prospect can only process so much information at any given time. So the simpler here, the better. Don also talks about giving your plan a name. The ABC way, or the proven blank process, or the guaranteed formula, or whatever it is. Sometimes when we give our plan a name, it actually increases the perceived value of that process. Isn't that true? So we have to consider giving our plan some sort of a name and actually branding the plan itself. Okay, we've got a character. The character has a problem. They meet a guide. That's us. We give them a plan. We have to ask them to do something, though, don't we? We can't just passively sit there and not ask for the sale, or not ask them to take step 1 of that process or that plan. So we have to call them to action. So Don talks about how human beings don't really make major decisions unless something really pushes them to do so. Something has to really challenge you or push you to make a major decision. Usually entrepreneurs don't come to us for a website unless that website's a bad website. Unless that website's incredibly outdated, it's bad, it's embarrassing. They are missing opportunities. They have visitors on the site, but it's like a sieve. Visitors come and go. They're not getting phone calls. They're not generating leads. They're not scheduling appointments. Eventually that gets so painful that the entrepreneur says, all right, this is the quarter. This is one of our rocks for the quarter, team, right? We're going to work on our website. We're going to launch a new website this quarter and fix this mess. Everyone needs to be challenged to make a decision. So think about your own company. I'm sure that you're aware of certain triggers that are triggering your prospects to go in search of a solution like yours. So we have to think about that, right? That triggers them, but then we have to push them. We have to call them to action. Don says that selling passively is almost like a lack of belief in your product or service. Like, you don't ask for the sale. You don't push them to book a call. You don't push them to get a quote on your website or whatever it might be. You just kind of nonchalantly throw up information. That almost looks like it's a lack of belief in the eyes and the mind of the prospect, right? So we have to lean on the side of being more aggressive, potentially, especially as it relates to online, especially as it relates to your website. You're competing against, thousands of ads a day. So we have to compete, and we have to put a call to action out there. Don talks about 2 kinds of call to actions. Number 1 is a direct call to action, more of like a primary call to action. Easiest way to explain this, think about your website. So maybe on your website, you want people to book a call, schedule an appointment, get a quote, whatever it might be. For someone to get in touch with you, that's like a direct call to action, right? If you sell a product, maybe it's buy now or add to cart or whatever it might be, but it's more of like it's your ideal action. It's a direct call to action. The next one is what he calls a transitional call to action. I look at that as a secondary call to action. Not all of your website visitors are ready to book a call with you just yet. Maybe 1 to 3% of your website visitors on average is actually ready to get in touch, to connect with you. So if you have 100 visitors a month, let's say, maybe 1 to 3 of those visitors is actually ready. Unfortunately, the vast majority of your website visitors aren't ready just yet. So we need to give them a transitional or a secondary call to action. So that might look like download this PDF, 5 costly mistakes your character makes when looking to hire this sort of a company, or 10 ways to make your home more safe and comfortable, whatever it might be. But we need to give them like a downloadable PDF, or we need to give them access to register to a webinar, or we need to give them a tip sheet or a checklist or who knows what, recipe guide, whatever it might be. But there needs to be something there for them that adds value and also positions your company as the guide even that much more further. So we got to give them that call to action. They have to be pushed. Okay, we've got a character. They have a problem, right? They meet a guide. That's you. The guide gives them a plan, right? The guide calls them to action. We can't sit passively. We have to push them to take some action. And then we need to actually talk about the stakes. What's actually at stake here? We need to paint a picture, just a little bit, of what failure looks like. What does it look like for your prospect if they don't take action? What does that mean? Think about the problem that they're having, the problem that you solve as a brand, service, company, product, whatever it might be. What happens in their life, at their job, if you're B2B, whatever it might be? What happens if they don't take action? See, human beings are more compelled to move away from pain versus toward pleasure. I mean, studies have been done where it's like, hey, would you rather save $100 or make $100? And the vast majority of people are like, whoa, I'd rather save $100. We are just wired, many of us, a vast portion of the population, we're just wired to be more likely to move away from pain than toward pleasure. So we need to talk about the stakes. We need to actually paint a picture of what failure looks like. And Don says, look, a story without conflict, without stakes, it's just simply boring. Like if there's a story without stakes, people are going to walk out of the movie theater. They're going to walk out of your presentation if there's not at least some stakes there. But it's really important to appreciate the fact that failure is like salt in a recipe. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want to be like this fear-mongering company that is overbearing with how much failure we talk about. We just want to sprinkle it in a little bit. Maybe 1, 2, 3 things of, hey, just to remind you, we're looking to help you avoid these things, but we want to move you towards success, right? So it's the salt in the recipe. And then the final part of this is success, right? This is like the flour in the recipe. You can't go wrong. You add too much salt, recipe, the meal tastes bad. Can't really go wrong with adding flour. So we really want to cake this on. We really want to discover, 4, 5, 6, 7 things as far as what does success look like? At the end of the day, if we solve the prospect's problem, what does success look like for them, right? So this goes back to, again, people want to be taken somewhere. People want that vision casted for them, and they need to know what this looks like if you can achieve success with them. The ending should be super clear. Like sometimes it's very vague. You see companies that say like, we want to help you achieve success. That's great, but it's pretty vague. It's pretty broad. It's like, yeah, you and everyone else wants to help me achieve success, but get a little bit more detailed than that. So it should be really specific and it should be really clear as it relates back to your prospect, but we ultimately want to keep it simple, right? We don't have to use clever, crazy copywriting language and all this stuff. Like we just got to keep it really simple. Like I grew up and my dad ingrained this into my brain. Complexity is the enemy of success. And he's right. I believe him. And this is such a neat framework to really simplify everything. But at the end of the day, you need to simplify your messaging for what success looks like, right? So that's the nutshell. Again, let's just review quickly here. A character has a problem. They meet a guide. That guide gives them a plan, calls them to action, right? Helps them avoid failure and ultimately helps them achieve that success. So that is the StoryBrand framework, and that's really what this section is all about. It's implementing, building your own brand script, right? There's one last chapter here, and that's just almost like a reminder. It's like, hey, people want your company or your brand, product, service. They actually want you to participate in their transformation. That's what it's all about. And Don suggests that brands that do participate in the identity transformation of their prospects and customers, that's what really creates passionate brand evangelists, right? Think about Apple. Think about Apple. Think differently, right? Think about their messaging. Think about their commercials. It's all about the transformation of Apple and Mac users, isn't it? It's all about what that product does to help that person transform, to help their character transform. So he says great brands obsess about the transformation of their customers. And then he asks, who does your customer want to become? As they relate to your brand, who do they want to become? So back to my company, Savvy Pro Web, a lot of the entrepreneurs we serve, they're a little bit uncertain about digital marketing. We've all fallen into this digital first world, and it can be riddled with snake oil salesmen and landmines and technical language that nobody has time to translate, right? Especially when you're running a company. So like they come in just super uncertain about what they should do. And we always say that our product is confidence. Like we deliver confidence to the entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, after literally one phone call with us, they have the clarity they need to make informed, educated decisions as it relates to their website and frankly, their entire digital marketing strategy after like a half hour. So the product we deliver is really confidence. Like that's the transformation, going from uncertainty to total confidence over your marketing online. So you really need to think about that as it relates to your own company, or if you're a marketer and you work for a company, like think about the customer journey. You should know it well. And think about how someone's feeling, how a prospect's feeling when they come in the door, so to speak, and how that emotion transforms into a totally different emotion at the end of the journey, at the end of the customer experience. And that's really what it's all about. Okay, third and final section of the book, implementing your story brand script. This is actually, I just made a mistake. I think there's actually 4 sections. So this isn't the final section. We're getting there. But section 3 is implementing your story brand script. So he dedicates an entire chapter to building a better website. This is proof that having a good website that works in today's day and age is like, it's just pinnacle right now. It's so important. So he dedicates an entire chapter for this. And he says, once you have the brand script, like the first thing you need to do is fix your website. Use this language on your website. If your the aspirational identity of your character is one of confidence or whatever it is, like use confident, happy, smiling imagery of your ideal prospects on your website. I love how he says like he works with companies that, do accounting, for example. This isn't exactly what he said, but you find accounting firms online and it's a picture of their building in the background. And it's like, okay, that's nice. Are you selling commercial real estate? Oh, you're a CPA firm. I didn't realize that, So oftentimes we project this imagery, and we use this imagery in all of our marketing collateral, not just our website, but in our brochures and on our business cards. And it's like, is there any alignment there as far as the transformation we deliver to our clients and our customers? Is there any alignment? If you're a CPA firm and you're delivering, peace of mind for your clients and tax savings for your clients, is there some better imagery we can use outside of the front of your office building? Probably. So getting back to building a better website here, it's really great and all to do the work in the book. It's really great to answer these 7 questions as it relates to your product, brand, service, company. But if we don't implement it, if we don't put it into play, we won't get results, right? So he says we only see increased engagement from our prospects if we actually implement this. We still have to implement this. Creating it's great. It's only half, it's half of the equation. The other half is actually putting it into play. He says that a website full of noise can kill potential sales. There's so many websites that I go to and it feels like I'm walking into Walmart. It's like a small company $10 million of gross revenues. It's a service-based local business. And I go to their website and it feels like I'm walking into Walmart. I've got an overwhelming amount of aisles. I've got an overwhelming menu at the top. And it's really too bad. But it goes back to that enemy he speaks of, which is noise. There's so many of us who don't know what to do on our website. So we just throw the kitchen sink at this thing. And after so many years, it just becomes this Frankenstein mashup of information. And it's really confusing. And it's frankly exhausting to manage all the content, right? So a website full of noise can kill potential sales. He then talks about the 5 things your website should include. He says it should include an offer above the fold. There should be something above the fold. That comes from the old, the old times of the newspaper where, it was stacked like this, right? And it's above the fold. So you'd pick it up and it looks like this, but above the fold, that's where the big stories and the headlines were, because that's what's going to get you to pay a quarter and buy the newspaper. So when he talks about above the fold, that's simply what he means. Well, when it comes to your screen, anything you see above where the screen ends, right, is above the fold. So there should be an offer there. It should say book a call. It should say get a quote. It should say request a proposal. It should say download the PDF, register for the website webinar. There should be an offer above the fold. You need to have obvious calls to action. There should be a call to action for whether it's dialing your phone number or booking a call, scheduling an appointment, getting a quote. There should be an obvious call to action in the upper right-hand corner of every single page on your website. If you've got just a generic contact us link up there, it's too broad. No one really wants to just contact you. They want to get something from you, whether it's clarity, a quote, or whatever it might be. They want to get something from you. So we have to spell that out, and we have to keep that call to action obvious and static throughout our entire website. We also need images of success. So what does success look like as it relates to the clients or customers that you serve? And think through that for a moment. And it's probably happy, smiling people, right? Having a good time and enjoying life. They've got peace of mind, confidence, whatever it is you might deliver emotionally, whatever that transformation looks like. We have to have those images of success on our website. We don't do that often enough. We need a bite-sized breakdown of your revenue streams on your website. No, so many companies I see, they've got, let's say, like 12 service lines, right? And they've got 12 individual pages for all those service lines, and they're like a mile long. You got to scroll forever, and they just disclose every bit of information. Look what this says, bite-sized breakdown. We work with so many companies who have 11 service lines, and it's like, well, let's look at the allocations of your revenue, right? Which of those services account for 50%, 70%, 80% or more of your revenue? And they're like, oh, well, most of our business is just, these 2 or these 3 service lines. The other ones are just kind of add-ons and upsells and things of that nature. Yet they treat them on the website like they're the leading services. So we need to create bite-sized breakdowns of revenue streams on our website. We don't have to disclose the whole darn thing, right? And then we need to use actually as few words as possible. The days of like tricking Google with crazy SEO terminology, search engine optimization terminology, those days are over. And it makes more sense today to please the human website visitor on your website than it does Google. And there's a lot of SEO experts out there that will argue with me, but I'll tell you this, chances are, if you've had a website for a few years, you're sitting on acres of diamonds. And here's what I mean by that. You probably have 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 website visitors a month as it sits. And the mistake we all make is we invest in SEO or we pay for these Facebook ads or who knows what. We pour more traffic into our website and we get the same results as we're getting today. You're sitting on acres of diamonds. So you've already got people on your website. You're most likely a well-established brand. All of the activities you've done leading up to today, you probably have people on your website every month. Implement this framework. Use the language that you come up with these 7 parts of the StoryBrand framework. Use those words on your website and then see what happens. We actually want as few words as possible. In fact, when we do website audits, when we're about to deliver a project, we'll go through with a fine-tooth comb, and anything that's not on our client's brand script is eliminated. I mean, that's how pure and that's how focused we get. So oftentimes we just have all this opportunity existing today, but our website's just not doing a good job of converting its visitors into leads. And this framework can fix that very quickly. Okay, so that's the 5 things your website should include. And then that's the last point I just made. He says, stay on script. If there's anything in your marketing materials or in your sales communications and it doesn't align with what you've crafted in your brand script, try eliminating it and see what the results look like. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. All right, next chapter, how StoryBrand can transform a large organization. So he talks about how these brand scripts can actually transform employee engagement. Brand scripts are just not for marketing purposes. I've used brand scripts and answered these 7 questions in a way that is helpful for onboarding talent, for HR purposes, and it's unbelievable how effective it is to attract the right kind of people. Because again, you're putting yourselves in their shoes and you're expressing empathy for what it is they're looking for, and they're immediately attracted to you. You can take this brand script and apply it internally to your employees. You can apply it to each department, each division within your company. It's amazing, and it really can transform your employee engagement. He talks about the curse of the narrative void. I don't want to cover that too much here. But at the end of the day, he talks about how companies, as they grow, unfortunately, they experience the curse of the narrative void, where the vision, the mission of the company kind of gets forgotten about, right? As the company grows, it's almost like there's so many degrees of separation where from the founder and the company grows this way, and all of a sudden there becomes this narrative void in the company, which is really going to create stagnation. It can create turnover. It can cause all sorts of issues. He talks about how a mission statement's good, but it's not good enough. It's like what he calls a tagline for a movie. You know, it's like that little tagline on the movie poster. It's not enough. It's great, but it doesn't actually like drive all the culture, right? So brand scripts, if you take that little mission statement and you just flesh it out a little bit using a brand script, you can actually drive a lot more engagement internally. He says an on-mission company turns their entire team into a sales force. Now everybody is saying the same things, speaking the same language. I mean, you have walking, talking salespeople everywhere within the company, saying the right words that get prospects to listen and pay attention and engage. That's pretty powerful stuff. He says an on-mission brand understands the story of their team members. How important is that? Is to understand the story of your direct reports or of your employees. And he says where there's no story, as it relates to larger organizations, where there's no story, there is no engagement. Okay. Hey, I was right. That was the third and final section. Look at that. Okay. The last section here, even though it's not section number 4 officially, but the last part of the book, the end of the book, is all about the marketing roadmap. So again, this is all fine and dandy. It's a powerful framework. I've done the brand script. Now what, right? Where do I take this from here? So first and foremost, the most important step is to refine your website. There's an entire chapter dedicated to that, right? So he talks about creating a one-liner. I look at this as like an elevator pitch. When someone asks you, hey, what do you do? Instead of saying, well, I do marketing at this company, or I own an HVAC business, or I'm in insurance, or I own a financial planning firm, or law firm, whatever it is. Instead of just saying what you do in that way, start with the problem you solve. That's that hook, right? So he says, once you've done your website, create your one-liner. It starts with a character. It talks about the problem, talks about the plan, talks about the success, right? And once you craft a one-liner, you can use this on the back of your business cards. You can use it in your little LinkedIn bio area. You can use it everywhere. You can put it in the footer of your website. You can use it as a tagline underneath your logo. Really powerful stuff. So when someone's asked me what I do, rather than say I own a web design advisory, right? I say, well, for most entrepreneurs, Dealing with website vendors is as painful as a root canal. And I founded a company called Savvy Pro Web, and we actually get it. We're a team of entrepreneurs. We get it. We build hassle-free websites that improve credibility, generate more leads, and ultimately win clients. And that gets people's attention, right? Because I start with the problem. It's really neat to see when someone asks me what I do and they're the right prospect, they're my character. It's really neat for them to say, hey, do you have a business card? I mean, what better compliment to Don Miller's one-liner idea than when someone asks you for a business card, right? So super powerful mini framework here for creating your one-liner. Next thing, create a lead generator on your website and collect email addresses. Those can be anywhere from downloadable guides to an online course, a webinar. Maybe it's a software demo, some sort of a free trial, a free sample. Maybe it's registering for an upcoming live event. But start capturing email addresses on your website. Again, the vast majority of website visitors aren't ready to do what you want them to do just yet. We have to give them an irresistible offer they can't refuse. Don calls that a lead generator. And we have to collect their email address so we have an opportunity to follow up with them over the next few weeks or months and ultimately get them to do what we want them to do, right? Third thing is create an automated email drip campaign. And while a lot of us think that, email's dead, well, think about it this way. What do you need to sign up to almost anything online? You need a valid email address. The inbox is like one of the most intimate places you can be, right? In all of our lives is right here on our smartphone, lighting up the notifications. Isn't that true? So we need to create some sort of an automated email campaign, okay? There's great power, as Don mentions, in reminding our customers we exist. So many people come in through our website, they'll download a guide, and like 3, 4, 5 months later, they're finally ready to embark on their journey and get a new website. So think about your customer life cycle. So many people come in, do a little due diligence, and then things get busy. The holidays are approaching, or there's a big tax change in tax law, or who knows? I mean, we're all busy living our lives. So don't think they have to do something the moment they get to your website. Make sure you give them something that delivers a ton of value, helps them solve their problem, further positions you, your company, your brand, product, service as the guide in their story, and gives you an opportunity to continue to follow up with them over time so that when the time is right, they're like, oh gosh, this person or this company sent me a ton of great information over the last few weeks or months, and you know what? Looks like this is the right quarter to focus on this. I'm going to give them a call, okay? Fourth thing, collect and tell stories of transformation. These are testimonials. I'm not going to share this here in the summary, but Don has 5 incredible questions you can ask your clients, your customers, and it really leads them into them answering it the right way so you can really capture the little nuances of the transformation. They're brilliant questions. We use them here at Savvy Pro Web. So love those. Highly recommend looking at page 200 if you're using the hardcover copy. And then, of course, people are drawn to transformation, right? We're all drawn to transformation. So if and when a company, product, brand, service helps people grow and transform and become better versions of themselves in some way, shape, or form, helps them survive, thrive in a way that doesn't make them burn too many calories, we're all attracted to that. Isn't that true? We're all attracted to that. Fifth and final thing is create a system that generates referrals. This is such an important point because we serve so many clients who say, 90% of our business in the last 20 years is done by way of referral. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to recommend Twitter ads. That wouldn't work. We can already tell you the outcome of that one. But let's look at what your referral system looks like. And they're like, it's like a deer in headlights. Well, we don't have a referral system. It's like, well, would it be a good idea to, formally implement a referral system so you can get more of what's already working? If you're one of those businesses that depends on referrals, this is a huge, huge, huge point. Create a system that generates referrals. Now, what's in this book is probably not enough information for you to actually deploy a referral system. It's not thorough enough, but he gives us some high-level points, right? Identify your ideal customers, give your customers a reason to spread the word by way of a simple PDF or a video, and then ultimately offer a reward program of some sort. So pretty straightforward stuff. A lot of service companies give like a 10% referral fee, right? So nothing new there. There's some great books about referral systems out there. I've actually got a handful of them behind me. We won't talk about those today because we're talking about Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. But if you're one of those businesses who depends on referrals, it might be time to put a step on the gas and accelerate that effort and spend a quarter or two designing, implementing, deploying a referral system that is more predictable than what you've been doing in the past. It's such good advice. I absolutely love the fact that he included this here, because a lot of this is about digital marketing. A lot of this is about your website, but this is huge for so many companies out there. So that's it. There you have it. We've reached the end of our journey. I hope the summary of Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand was helpful for you. This mind map is available. There's a link below where you can download it. I also have a link to buy a copy on Amazon if you're interested. And leave a like, hit subscribe, and let me know if you have any recommendations for some sort of a business book in the future. Books on entrepreneurship, books on business systems, books on marketing, on sales best practices. The vast majority of the books I read these days are business related. So if you have any suggestions for me, I'm going to do my best to do more reviews than I have been, or more summaries than I have been. But I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. Hope you enjoyed the summary of Building a Story Brand, and we'll hopefully see you in the near future. Take care.